Hi, thank you for clicking on the video, and I hope everyone is doing really well. Today I'm going to be talking about the side effects of eating disorders. Now, the side effects that I have compiled into a list for the video today are the ones that I myself have experienced firsthand. There are a lot more out there, and everyone's eating disorder experience is different. Everyone goes through different things, but this is just what I experienced. So don't think that everyone experiences all these things or this is it. I'm going to go over both the emotional and mental as well as the physical side effects. So I'm going to start with emotional and mental. For me, having an eating disorder suddenly made me very aware of my body and my bones and my skin. I just became very aware. And what I mean by that is I can, like, even though I'm building muscle like in my back still, I can feel like my bones and they're trying to push through, and I'm like constantly fighting with the idea that it's better to have visible bones than to be strong and muscular. While being strong and muscular is what I want, I have that voice in my head saying, but bones are better. So I'm always very aware of how much of my bone is exposed and how much isn't. And then I'm aware of like my legs, and I'm aware of like cellulite and all that stuff. And I can meticulously critique every inch of my body, and I can know exactly where like every little spot is, every little wrinkle, every little like patch of cellulite, like to the centimeter. I can tell you where everything is. But it just made me very aware, and that makes me very uncomfortable because I'm always, when I'm around other people, I'm so aware that I'm worried they're aware also, which is another side effect of an eating disorder where it's very hard to be around other people because even though they're not judging you, you feel like they are judging you. It's actually just you criticizing yourself inside and creating this delusion that everyone cares about your body, but it's just you judging yourself. I've always had a passion or a desire to learn about health and nutrition, but the eating disorder made me obsessed with dieting. I would spend hours online looking at diets and writing up my own diets and putting out like meal plans that I never followed, but I was just obsessed. It came out of nowhere. I never cared before, and then all of a sudden I was obsessed with dieting. And it really, not me physically dieting, wasn't the main focus of it. No, it was reading about it and always like wanting to find the next fad and like reading more and more and more, which is interesting because now I'm making these videos about diets, but it's from years and years of being obsessed with them. I have all this compiled information just sitting in my brain. What am I supposed to do with it? When you spend years and years counting calories and learning about diets and learning about the good and the bad foods, you know exactly the amount of calories that are in everything. And that's information that's just not going to go away. When you do it long enough, the information sticks. And I did it long enough that now, without even thinking about it, I know how many calories are in things. I have to ignore that. I have to ignore the calorie count. I have to ignore that information and just eat the thing because I want to, and I want that thing, and I'm going to enjoy it because I know I like it. I have to ignore the numbers that are going through my head. I love math, so my brain is always calculating when I'm eating, and I really have to shut that part of my brain off and just enjoy the food. And that's a side effect that is very frustrating. Yeah, you have this voice in your head saying, keep the number down, keep the number down, keep it small, keep the number small. And when you're constantly calculating what you're eating and that number gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it's very conflicting because you're like, I just want to eat my food in peace. Brain, shut up. So you just have to by practicing, just like you were able to store that information of all those numbers, you can retrain your brain to ignore that part and just enjoy being in the company of other people and eating and just enjoy life. For me, when I first started trying to get better, I found it very difficult to eat, and I still have that problem now. It's, again, fighting with the voice inside your head saying that eating is bad and eating too much is bad and eating certain things is bad. So it's just very difficult to retrain your body, retrain your brain to accept food again. And that was why it was so difficult for me to eat, and I still find it difficult sometimes. I have anxiety, and my anxiety increases exponentially when it comes to food. The idea of food, I like to cook, I like to eat, it just creates anxiety thinking about it. If I don't have a set plan when it comes to eating, I get very thrown off, and I never experienced this before probably because I was so controlled of what I was eating and how much and when and everything like that. I mean, it was so meticulous. So I still have that kind of routine in my brain. I kind of just have to know what I'm doing when it comes to food ahead of time so that I can prepare myself mentally so that the anxiety doesn't get the better of me, and so then I am able to sit down and enjoy what I'm eating. In addition to anxiety, two other emotions that I feel sometimes towards food is anger and guilt. I have gotten a lot better, especially with the guilt one. I used to feel so guilty if I ate anything like dessert-like or sweets or decadent or salty, and now I'm actually, guilt is probably one of the least, like the lowest thing on the list that I feel when it comes to food. But anger, I think for me, I feel angry when I was planning on eating certain things and then I like binge a little bit, I do feel angry towards my lack of self-control because I used to pride myself on how controlled I could be. Also, of course, when I mess up and I might have a binge and a purge episode, and of course I'm going to feel angry because that just feels like a setback and it's a disappointment. The next two side effects are big ones, and I think across the board, anyone who's ever had an eating disorder, had an issue with food, had an issue with eating is going to say this is probably the two most common side effects, and that's having a negative relationship with food, having a negative opinion of food, having a negative opinion of eating, because for a lot of us, eating is almost like a sign of weakness. For some reason, our brain decides that eating is a sign that you're weak, you're not strong enough, you can't like keep yourself alive. I'm not really sure where that comes from. I think it's just something that develops from the lack of eating and the lack of nutrition. You're not getting enough like nutrients to your brain, so you can't think straight, and so you create these rules and these ideals and these concepts that just aren't true. And the other very common side effect is a fear of gaining weight, and not just a fear of gaining weight, a fear of the whole concept of weight. Just the idea of having extra like baggage to carry around used to terrify me. I now am able to like kind of walk myself through like, what am I thinking? Is this rational? And then basically getting to the you're okay stage. I think it comes from the idea that if you gain weight, you will be obese, but that there's an in-between, there's an in-between stage of healthy weight. And so you have to put aside the whole concept of weight and bring in the concept of healthy weight. And also remember that if you gain weight, you're not going to magically wake up one morning and you're going to be 400 pounds and you're going to be obese and you're going to die from like diabetes and cancer. Like that's not going to happen. So you have to take the irrational fear away and bring in a realization. You have to take away the irrational fear and bring in an understanding of how reality works. Speaking of irrational things, eating disorders turn you into an irrational perfectionist to the point where you are trying to achieve the unachievable. I mean, I talked about how meticulous of a critic I can be towards my own body. Even when I'm cooking, I mean, I love when things look perfect. When I'm baking like cake and I'm doing like piping work and frosting work and all that stuff, it needs to be perfect. If it doesn't, I will probably have a meltdown. And that never, I mean, I've always wanted things to look good, but not to that degree. And so it really stemmed from this drive for perfection within myself. So now I project it into everything I do, and it must be perfect. And if it's anything less than perfect, it's not good enough, or it's not good at all. So it really has turned me into something I'm really trying not to be anymore. And again, I am making progress every day, and I think I am a lot less of a perfectionist. I am starting to not care about the little things, the little like mess up. So what if my cake has like runny frosting down the side? It's still gonna taste good. It's all gonna turn to mush in your stomach anyway. So if it doesn't look perfect, it's not the end of the world. The next one is constantly comparing yourself to others. Constantly feeling pressure even when there's nothing to be pressured by. I feel like it's self-created anxiety. The next side effect is not just a side effect, it's a part of having an eating disorder. So whether you're in the eating disorder or you are recovering from an eating disorder, you're probably going to feel a great sense of loneliness. I've said it before, eating disorders want you alone because you're the most vulnerable alone. And it convinces you you don't need people and that you shouldn't eat in front of people. Eating disorders make you scared, but you don't know why you're scared. What are you scared of? So the final 4 side effects that I'm going to list are some of the 4 big ones and the ones that have lifelong effects. And the first one being low self-esteem and low self-worth. When your whole being relies on your self-worth, and your self-worth depends on how thin you can be and how controlled you can be in your life, you're gonna live a miserable life. I have had low self-esteem for over 20 years of my life, and that's over half my life. And when you have low self-esteem from a very, very young age, it's a habit. It's a very hard habit to break. And that's why it's probably one of the most critical side effects of an eating disorder to tackle and to essentially beat and get through it and realize that my self-worth does not depend on my outward appearance. And when you have low self-esteem, low self-worth, you're suffering from an eating disorder, you're super lonely, you're going to develop depression. Now, I'm not going to say it's a guarantee you're going to develop depression, but chances are depression is on the table with all of those other mental problems. The next side effect of eating disorders that is a big one for me at least, and probably for a lot of other people, is body image dysmorphia. Now, I plan to do a whole video on body image dysmorphia, but just to kind of tell you what it means or what it is, body image dysmorphia is when you look in the mirror and what you see is not actually, you're not seeing you. Your brain has created an image of you, and so you see that image rather than your actual appearance. Body image dysmorphia is really hard because you have to learn to disconnect your brain from your eyes. And the last emotional, mental side effect of an eating disorder, and I kind of hinted at it throughout this video, always having the eating disorder voice in your head. So I think I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to make the physical side effects a whole separate video because I think this video, it just got a little too long. And I hope you learned something, and if you did, please give this video a like. Please subscribe for more videos about eating disorders, diets, and nutrition, and I will see you next time. Bye!